Mommy is very sick, so I came to sell my toys to buy medicine. What the CEO did next shocked everyone. Just before we begin, your presence means a lot. Say hi and share where you're tuning in from, only if you want to. The morning sun cast long shadows across the pristine marble steps of Wellington Industries, where 7-year-old Emma clutched a worn grocery bag filled with her most precious possessions. Her tiny fingers trembled as she arranged the toys on a faded pink blanket. A one-eyed teddy bear named Mr. Buttons, her favorite princess doll with tangled hair, and 3 plastic dinosaurs that once roared with battery-powered sounds. "Please, somebody buy something," she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible above the bustling sounds of downtown Chicago's business district. The little girl's brown eyes, far too serious for someone her age, darted nervously between the imposing glass doors of the corporate building and the steady stream of suited professionals hurrying past. Emma had chosen this spot carefully. Mama always said rich people worked in the tall, shiny buildings, and this was the tallest, shiniest one she could find. She'd walked 12 blocks from their tiny apartment, carrying the heavy bag and blanket, driven by a desperation that no child should ever feel. "My mommy is very sick," she practiced saying, the words catching in her throat. "She needs medicine and I have the best toys. Please?" Inside the towering building, Marcus Wellington stood at his corner office window on the 42nd floor, his steel-grey eyes scanning quarterly reports while his mind wandered to the upcoming board meeting. At 53, he commanded one of the largest construction empires in the Midwest, his every decision affecting thousands of employees and millions in revenue. The weight of responsibility sat on his broad shoulders like an expensive suit, familiar, necessary, and sometimes suffocating. A movement far below caught his attention. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, he spotted something unusual on the steps of his building. A small figure in a faded yellow dress, sitting alone among what appeared to be toys. Marcus frowned, reaching for his desk phone to call security, but something made him pause. The child, for he could see now it was definitely a child, was speaking earnestly to every passerby, holding up items with an urgency that was palpable even from 42 floors up. Most people hurried past without stopping, but a few paused briefly before shaking their heads and continuing on their way. Marcus set down his phone and grabbed his suit jacket. "Margaret, cancel my 10 o'clock. He called to his assistant as he strode toward the elevator. "I'll be back shortly." The ride down felt endless. Marcus found himself thinking about his own daughter, safely tucked away in her private school across town. Her biggest worry being which activities to choose for summer camp. The contrast wasn't lost on him as the elevator dinged softly at the ground floor. Emma looked up as polished black shoes stopped directly in front of her blanket. Her gaze traveled up expensive charcoal pants, past a crisp white shirt and silk tie, finally landing on the face of a man who looked like he belonged in the movies, stern but not unkind, with graying temples and eyes that seemed to see everything. "Hello there," Marcus said, his voice gentler than Emma had expected from someone so intimidating. "I'm Marcus. What's your name?" "Emma," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Then, remembering her mission, she straightened her shoulders with touching determination. "Would you like to buy a toy? They're really good toys and I only need enough money for my mama's medicine." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He knelt down slowly, bringing himself to Emma's eye level, his expensive suit forgotten as his knees touched the concrete. "Tell me about your mama, Emma." The floodgates opened. Words tumbled out of the little girl like water through a broken dam. How Mama had been coughing for weeks. How she couldn't clean the big offices anymore because she was too tired. How the medicine from the free clinic wasn't working, and how the doctor said they needed different medicine that cost more money than they had. The doctor said it might help make her better, Emma concluded, holding up Mr. Buttons with devastating hope. This bear is really special. He used to talk, but his batteries died. Maybe your little girl would like him." Marcus felt something crack open in his chest, a place he'd kept carefully sealed since his divorce 3 years ago. This wasn't just about medicine or money. This was about a child willing to sacrifice everything she loved for the chance to save her mother. "Emma," he said carefully, "I'd like to help you and your mama. But first, I need you to tell me where you live." The little girl's face clouded with uncertainty. Mama had always warned her about strangers, especially strange men. But there was something in this man's eyes, a sadness that matched her own, a sincerity that her 7-year-old intuition recognized as genuine. As Emma began to share her address, neither she nor Marcus could have imagined that this moment would unravel a 20-year-old secret that would change both their lives forever. Marcus stared at the crumpled piece of paper in his hand, his heart pounding as he read the address Emma had carefully written in crayon. 1247 Maple Street. Apartment 3B. The numbers swam before his eyes as memories he'd buried for 20 years came flooding back. Maple Street. He knew that street. "Emma, sweetheart," he said, his voice oddly strained. "What's your mama's full name?" "Maria Rodriguez," Emma replied proudly. "She's the best mama in the whole world. She cleans offices at night so she can take care of me during the day, but now she's too sick to work." Maria Rodriguez. The name hit Marcus like lightning. 20 years ago, there had been another Maria on Maple Street, a young woman with laughing eyes and dreams of becoming a teacher. A woman he'd loved desperately and lost through his own foolish pride. "Emma, I'm going to help you," Marcus said, his mind racing. "But first, I need to speak with your mama. Is she home now?" Emma nodded eagerly. "She's sleeping. She sleeps a lot now because the medicine makes her tired, but she'd want to meet you. She always says good people exist, even when times are hard." Marcus carefully helped Emma pack her toys, his hands shaking slightly as he folded the small blanket. As they walked toward his car, he caught his reflection in the building's glass doors. A successful businessman worth hundreds of millions, but inside, he felt like the 25-year-old who'd made the biggest mistake of his life. The drive to Maple Street would take 20 minutes. 20 minutes to prepare for an encounter that might destroy him or save him. As Emma chatted excitedly in the back seat about all the things she wanted to buy for her mama once she sold her toys, Marcus gripped the steering wheel and prayed he was wrong about what he was beginning to suspect. Maria Rodriguez lay in the narrow bed, her once vibrant face now pale and drawn from weeks of illness. At 38, she still possessed the gentle beauty that had once captivated a young Marcus Wellington. Though years of hard work and single motherhood had etched lines of determination around her dark eyes, the sound of footsteps in the hallway made her struggle to sit up. Emma's voice floated through the thin apartment walls, unusually excited and accompanied by deeper tones that made Maria's heart skip with an inexplicable sense of familiarity. "Mama! Mama! I sold my toys!" Emma burst through the door, her face glowing with triumph. "This nice man helped me, and he wants to talk to you." Maria's world tilted on its axis as Marcus Wellington stepped into her humble living room. 20 years fell away in an instant. The same strong jaw, the same intense grey eyes that had once promised her forever, the same way he unconsciously ran his hand through his hair when nervous. "Hello, Maria," Marcus said softly, his voice carrying all the weight of 2 decades of regret. "Marcus," she whispered, pulling Emma close protectively. "What are you doing here?" Emma looked between the 2 adults, confusion clouding her young features. "Do you know each other? Mama, he's going to help us buy your medicine." Maria's eyes filled with tears, not of joy, but of fear. The secret she'd guarded for 7 years, the truth she'd sworn she'd take to her grave, suddenly felt impossibly heavy. She'd seen Marcus's face in the business section of newspapers, watched his company's commercials on their old television, always wondering if fate would ever bring them together again. "Emma, sweetheart," Maria said carefully, "why don't you go wash your hands and change clothes? The grown-ups need to talk." As Emma reluctantly left the room, Marcus sat heavily in the room's single chair, his expensive suit looking absurdly out of place in the sparse apartment. "Maria? I had no idea you were. I mean, Emma said her mama's name, and when she gave me this address." He held up the paper with shaking hands. "You thought I was dead," Maria finished quietly. "Like everyone else from our old life. The car accident 20 years ago had been devastating. Maria's family killed instantly, herself barely surviving with amnesia that lasted months. By the time her memories returned, Marcus had already been married to someone else. Someone from his wealthy social circle who could give him the life his family expected. "I looked for you," Marcus said desperately. "When I heard about the accident, I went to the hospital, but they said there were no survivors. How could they have gotten it wrong?" Maria's laugh was bitter. "They didn't get it wrong, Marcus. Maria Gonzalez died in that accident. Maria Rodriguez was born in that hospital bed, with no family, no past, and no reason to contact the man who'd moved on so completely. But there was something else, something that made Maria's hands tremble as she watched Marcus struggle with the revelation. Something that made Emma's bright eyes and stubborn chin suddenly seem less like coincidence and more like destiny." Marcus spent the next 3 days unable to focus on anything but Maria and Emma. He'd insisted on paying for Maria's medical treatment immediately, calling in favors with the city's best doctors. But Maria had accepted his help with a distant politeness that broke his heart. Now, sitting in his office at midnight, he stared at a photograph on his desk. His daughter Charlotte, at Emma's age, 7 years old with pigtails and a gap-toothed smile. Charlotte, who lived with her mother in California and visited twice a year, their relationship strained by distance and his own emotional unavailability. The similarities between Charlotte and Emma were striking, but what haunted Marcus was something deeper. Emma's fierce determination, her way of tilting her head when she was thinking, the stubborn set of her jaw when she was determined about something, these weren't traits she could have inherited from Maria. His intercom buzzed. "Mr. Wellington, there's a Maria Rodriguez here to see you. She says it's urgent." Marcus's heart leapt. "Send her up immediately." Maria appeared in his doorway, looking stronger than she had in days. The new medication already beginning to work its magic, but her eyes held a resolve that made Marcus's stomach clench with anticipation. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. "About Emma. About why I really never contacted you after the accident. Maria, whatever happened between us, I want you to know—" "Marcus, stop." Now she held up her hand, her voice shaking. "Before you say anything else, before you make any more generous offers or promises, you need to know the truth." She moved to his window, looking out at the city lights, as if gathering courage from their glow. "The accident happened 3 weeks after I found out I was pregnant." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He sank into his chair, his mind reeling as pieces of a puzzle he hadn't known existed began falling into place. "When I woke up in that hospital, I had no memory of our relationship, of the pregnancy, of anything. It wasn't until months later that my memories returned. And by then—" She turned to face him, tears streaming down her face. "By then you were married. Your wedding announcement was in the society pages. I was a janitor's daughter with no family, no money, and no right to destroy your perfect new life." "But Emma," Marcus whispered. "How old is she exactly?" "She turned 7 last month, Marcus. 7 years and 9 months since the accident." The calculation was simple, devastating, and undeniable. Marcus stared at Maria as the full weight of what she was telling him crashed over him like a tsunami. Emma wasn't just any child he'd helped on his building steps. Emma was his daughter. The revelation hung between them like a live wire, dangerous and impossible to ignore. Marcus sat in stunned silence as Maria continued, her voice steady despite the tears flowing down her cheeks. "I've watched you from afar for 7 years, Marcus. I've seen your interviews, your success, your other daughter. I convinced myself that Emma and I were better off on our own, that we didn't need anything from your world." "My other daughter," Marcus repeated hollowly. "Charlotte doesn't even know she has a sister." Maria's composure cracked. "Don't you think I know that? Don't you think I've imagined 1,000 times what it would be like for Emma to have a real family, to go to good schools, to never worry about whether there's enough money for food or medicine?" Marcus stood abruptly, pacing to the window where Maria had stood moments before. Below, the city stretched endlessly, full of lives and secrets and missed opportunities. "Why now, Maria? Why tell me this now?" "Because I'm dying." The words were spoken so quietly that for a moment Marcus thought he'd imagined them. He spun around to face her, his heart stopping. "The doctors ran more tests," Maria continued, her voice clinical and detached. "The infection was just the beginning. I have cancer, Marcus, advanced pancreatic cancer. The medicine you paid for will help with the symptoms, but it won't cure me." Marcus felt the world tilt beneath his feet. "How long?" "6 months, maybe less." Maria's voice broke slightly. "I can't take care of Emma anymore. I won't be able to work, and even with the best treatment I won't survive to see her 8th birthday. The cruelty of the timing wasn't lost on either of them. After 20 years of separation, of missed opportunities and buried truths, they'd found each other again, just in time for another goodbye. "There's more," Maria said, pulling a small envelope from her purse. "I've been saving this for years, waiting for the right moment. I never thought that moment would come." She handed him the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a birth certificate, Emma's birth certificate, with the father's name listed as unknown. "I could have put your name there," Maria said softly. "I could have demanded support, forced you to acknowledge her, but I wanted Emma to be wanted, not obligated. I wanted her to have a father who chose to love her, not one who was trapped into it." Marcus stared at the document, his daughter's legal existence reduced to official stamps and medical details. "What do you want from me, Maria? What do you need?" "I want you to get to know her," Maria said. "I want you to love her the way she deserves to be loved. And when I'm gone—" Her voice broke completely. "When I'm gone, I want you to be her father, really be her father." The request hung in the air between them, enormous and terrifying and absolutely necessary. Marcus looked at the woman he'd once loved desperately, now facing the ultimate sacrifice of any parent, letting go of their child to ensure their survival. "She doesn't know," he said. It wasn't a question. "She doesn't know," Maria confirmed. "To her, you're just the kind man who helped us when we needed it most. But Marcus, she's been asking about her father her whole life. I've always told her that he was a good man who couldn't be with us. I never lied to her about that." 3 weeks later, Marcus found himself in an unfamiliar position, sitting on a playground bench, watching Emma play with other children while Maria rested nearby on a blanket. The new medication had given Maria some of her strength back, but the underlying truth of her condition cast a shadow over everything. Emma raced over to them, her face flushed with excitement. "Marcus, did you see me on the swings? I went really high." "I saw," Marcus said, his heart clenching at how easily she'd begun including him in her world. "You're very brave." "Mama says brave people do scary things when they need to," Emma said seriously. "Like when I sold my toys to help her. That was scary, but it was the right thing to do." Maria and Marcus exchanged a look over Emma's head. In the past 3 weeks, Marcus had visited them every day, taking them to doctor's appointments, bringing groceries, and slowly becoming a fixture in Emma's life. But they hadn't told her the truth yet. "Emma," Maria said gently, "come sit with us for a minute. We want to talk to you about something important." Emma plopped down between them, her small face serious. "Are you feeling worse, Mama? Because the doctor said the medicine was working." "The medicine is working," Maria assured her. "But Emma, remember how you've always asked about your daddy?" Emma's eyes widened, darting between her mother and Marcus. "Yes." "Well, sweetheart," Maria continued, her voice trembling, "Marcus isn't just a friend who's helping us. He's your father." "Dai." The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever. Emma stared at Marcus with wide, unblinking eyes, processing information that would change her entire understanding of her world. "You're my daddy," she whispered finally. Marcus knelt down to her level, his own eyes filling with tears. "Yes, Emma, I'm your daddy. And I know this is confusing and maybe scary, but I want you to know that finding out about you has been the most wonderful thing that's ever happened to me." Emma's lower lip trembled. "But where were you? Why didn't you come before?" The question every parent dreads: how do you explain adult complexities to a child's heart? Marcus looked to Maria for guidance, but this was his truth to tell. "I didn't know about you, sweetheart," he said honestly. "Your mama and we knew each other a long time ago, before you were born. But there was an accident, and we lost touch with each other. I've been looking for both of you without even knowing it." Emma turned to her mother. "Is that why you were always sad sometimes, because you missed him?" Maria's tears came freely now. "Yes, baby. I missed him very much. But I was never sad about having you. You've been the light of my life every single day." Emma stood quietly for a moment, her 7-year-old mind working through concepts that would challenge most adults. Then, with the pure acceptance that only children possess, she walked over to Marcus and climbed into his lap. "I always wanted a daddy," she said simply. "I'm glad it's you." As Marcus held his daughter for the first time as her acknowledged father, Maria watched with bittersweet joy. The hardest part of her truth was still to come, telling Emma about the cancer, about the limited time they had left together. But for this moment, in the golden afternoon light of the playground, her daughter finally had what she'd always wanted, a complete family, even if it had come just in time for goodbye. Marcus Wellington had commanded boardrooms filled with intimidating executives, negotiated million-dollar deals under crushing pressure, and built an empire from nothing. But sitting on the floor of Emma's tiny bedroom, trying to braid her hair for school, he felt more challenged than he ever had in his corporate life. "Ouch, Daddy!" "You're pulling too tight," Emma giggled, the word daddy still sending waves of emotion through Marcus every time she said it. "Sorry, sweetheart," Marcus said, his large hands fumbling with the small elastic band. "Your mama makes this look so easy." "Mama's been doing it forever," Emma said matter-of-factly, "but you're getting better. Yesterday you got both sides even." In the 3 weeks since the playground revelation, Marcus had thrown himself into fatherhood with the same intensity he brought to everything else. He'd rearranged his schedule, delegating more responsibilities to his vice presidents so he could spend mornings with Emma before school and evenings helping with homework. "There," he said, stepping back to admire his handiwork. The braids were slightly lopsided, but Emma beamed at herself in the small mirror above her dresser. "Perfect," she declared, then turned serious. "Daddy, is Mama going to get better soon? She seems more tired lately." Marcus's heart clenched. Maria had been declining faster than the doctors initially predicted. The cancer was aggressive, and despite the best treatment money could buy, her body was losing the battle. They hadn't told Emma the full truth yet, that her mother was dying. Not just sick. "Your mama is fighting very hard," Marcus said carefully. The medicine is helping, but her body needs time to get stronger. Emma nodded solemnly, then brightened. Maybe we should make her favorite pancakes for breakfast. She always smiles when we make pancakes together. As they headed to the kitchen, Marcus marveled at his daughter's resilience. Emma had adapted to having him in her life with an openness that amazed him. She'd started calling him Daddy naturally, included him in her bedtime prayers, and had even drawn a picture of their family, 3 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. But there was still so much Marcus didn't know about being a father to a 7-year-old. He'd missed Emma's first words, her first steps, her first day of school. With Charlotte, his relationship had been complicated by the divorce, reduced to scheduled visits and awkward phone calls. This was his chance to do it right. "Daddy, you're thinking really hard again," Emma observed as she climbed onto a chair to reach the pancake mix. "Mama says when grown-ups think too hard, they forget to be happy." "Your mama is very wise," Marcus said, lifting Emma so she could pour ingredients into the bowl. "What do you think about when you're happy?" "I think about you and Mama and me being a family," Emma said simply, "and I think about how lucky I am that you found us." The innocence of her words broke Marcus's heart. Emma had no idea that their time as a complete family was measured in weeks, not years. She didn't know that soon, very soon, she would lose the person who'd been her entire world for 7 years. "Emma," Marcus said quietly, "what would you think about meeting your sister?" Emma's eyes widened with excitement. "I have a sister? A real sister? Her name is Charlotte, and she's 10 years old. She lives far away with her mama, but I thought maybe she could come visit us." The truth was, Marcus had been struggling with how to tell Charlotte about Emma. His relationship with his older daughter was already strained, and introducing a half-sister, especially under these circumstances, felt like navigating a minefield. "I would love to meet her," Emma exclaimed. "Does she like pancakes?" "Does she know about me?" "She will soon," Marcus promised, though the conversation he needed to have with Charlotte's mother, his ex-wife Rebecca, would be one of the most difficult of his life. As they cooked together, Maria appeared in the doorway, wearing the soft smile that had first captured Marcus's heart 20 years ago. But now that smile was shadowed by exhaustion and pain she tried hard to hide. "Something smells wonderful," she said. Accepting the chair Marcus quickly pulled out for her. "Daddy made pancakes," Emma announced proudly. "Well, we made them together. He's getting really good at cooking." Maria caught Marcus's eye over Emma's head, and in that look was gratitude, love, and a desperate hope that he would be enough for Emma when she was gone. The weight of that responsibility should have terrified him, but instead it filled him with a fierce determination he'd never felt before. He was going to learn to be the father Emma deserved, and he was going to do it fast enough to prove to Maria that her daughter would be loved and protected always. But first, he had to tell Charlotte that her world was about to change completely. The video call with Charlotte and Rebecca was scheduled for that evening, after Emma had gone to bed. Marcus paced his penthouse apartment, practicing how to explain a situation that defied easy explanation. How do you tell your 10-year-old daughter that she has a sister she's never met, born from a relationship that predated her parents' marriage? Rebecca's face appeared on the screen first, her perfectly styled blonde hair and sharp business suit a stark contrast to the warm, chaotic environment of Maria and Emma's small apartment. Behind her, Charlotte bounced into view, her dark hair, so like Marcus's, pulled back in a neat ponytail. "Hi, Daddy," Charlotte said brightly, though Marcus noticed the slight distance in her voice that had developed over the past year. Since the divorce 3 years ago, their relationship had become increasingly formal, shaped by scheduled calls and holiday visits. "Hello, sweetheart. Rebecca." Marcus nodded to his ex-wife, who was studying him with the shrewd intelligence that had once attracted him to her. You look different, Marcus, Rebecca observed. Less corporate. What's this urgent matter you needed to discuss? Marcus took a deep breath. Charlotte, what I'm about to tell you might be surprising, but I want you to know that it doesn't change how much I love you. Charlotte's expression grew wary. Are you getting married again? No, sweetheart, but I've recently discovered that you have a sister. A younger sister named Emma. The silence that followed was deafening. Rebecca's face had gone completely still, while Charlotte looked confused. I don't understand, Charlotte said slowly. How can I have a sister? Marcus launched into the story, the careful, edited version appropriate for a 10-year-old. He explained about Maria, about the accident, about not knowing Emma existed until recently. He watched Charlotte's face carefully, seeing confusion give way to hurt, then to something that might have been excitement. She's 7? Charlotte asked. And she's been living here in Chicago this whole time? Yes, and Charlotte, she's wonderful. She's smart and brave and funny, and she's asked about meeting you. Rebecca finally spoke, her voice carefully controlled. Marcus, this is quite a bombshell, a secret daughter. How do we even know this child is yours? Rebecca, Marcus said firmly, I know. But Charlotte was focused on something else entirely. Is she why you've been cancelling our calls lately? Because you're too busy with your new daughter? The hurt in Charlotte's voice cut Marcus to the core. He realized that in his excitement about discovering Emma, he had been neglecting Charlotte, confirming her fears that she was being replaced. Charlotte, no, you are my daughter, and nothing will ever change that. Emma doesn't replace you. She's an addition to our family, not a replacement for anyone. But she gets to see you every day, Charlotte said, tears starting to flow. She gets to have breakfast with you and do homework with you and all the things I wish I could do. Marcus felt his heart breaking. In trying to make up for lost time with Emma, he'd inadvertently hurt Charlotte. Sweetheart, I want you to come visit. I want you to meet Emma, and I want us to figure out how to be a family together. What about Emma's mother? Rebecca asked sharply. Where does she fit into this picture? Marcus hesitated. He hadn't planned to share Maria's diagnosis, but the question demanded honesty. Maria is very sick. She's dying. The words hung heavy in the digital space between them. Charlotte's anger immediately transformed into something softer, more complicated. Emma's mommy is dying, Charlotte whispered. That's so sad. It is sad, Marcus agreed, which is why it's important for Emma to have family around her, real family. Rebecca's expression had shifted too. Despite their difficult divorce, she wasn't heartless. How long does she have? The doctors say a few months at most. Charlotte was quiet for a long moment, processing information that would challenge most adults. Finally, she looked up at the camera with determination that reminded Marcus powerfully of himself. I want to meet her, Charlotte said firmly. Emma, I want to meet my sister. Charlotte, Rebecca started, but Charlotte cut her off. Mom, she's going to lose her mommy. She needs family, and I've always wanted a sister. Marcus felt pride swell in his chest. Despite her hurt feelings, Charlotte's first instinct was compassion for a sister she'd never met. We'll arrange a visit, Rebecca said quietly. Soon. After they ended the call, Marcus sat in his empty penthouse, thinking about how dramatically his life had changed in just a few weeks. Soon, he would have both his daughters together for the first time. He only hoped that Emma would still have her mother to witness it. Charlotte's arrival in Chicago was orchestrated with military precision. Rebecca had insisted on accompanying her, and Marcus had reserved a suite at the Four Seasons. Uncertain how long the visit might last, or how well the introduction would go, Emma had been beside herself with excitement for days, changing her outfit 3 times that morning and asking Marcus repeatedly if he thought Charlotte would like her. What if she thinks I'm too little? Emma worried as they waited in the hotel lobby. What if she doesn't want to be my sister? Emma, Marcus said, kneeling to her level. Charlotte is going to love you because you're lovable. Just be yourself. When the elevator doors opened and Charlotte stepped out, flanked by Rebecca and a mountain of designer luggage, Emma literally bounced on her toes. Charlotte, for her part, stopped dead and stared at the little girl who was unmistakably her half-sister. The family resemblance was striking. Both girls had Marcus's dark hair and strong chin, though Emma's eyes were Maria's warm brown, while Charlotte had inherited Rebecca's green eyes. But there was something deeper, a shared way of tilting their heads when curious, a similar stubborn set to their shoulders. "Hi," Emma said shyly, suddenly overcome with nerves. "I'm Emma." "I'm Charlotte," the older girl replied, equally uncertain. The adults watched tensely as the two sisters sized each other up. Then Emma, with the fearless heart that had driven her to sell toys on corporate steps, stepped forward and hugged Charlotte tightly. "I'm so happy you're here," Emma said into Charlotte's shoulder. "I've never had a sister before." Charlotte stood frozen for a moment, then slowly hugged Emma back. "Me either." Rebecca introduced herself to Maria with cool politeness. But Marcus noticed how her expression softened when she saw how frail Maria had become. Whatever Rebecca's feelings about the situation, she wasn't cruel enough to add to a dying woman's suffering. "Emma's been so excited to meet Charlotte," Maria said warmly. "She's been planning activities for weeks." "Can I show you my room?" Emma asked Charlotte eagerly. "It's small, but I have really good books and Daddy got me new art supplies." As the girls disappeared into Emma's bedroom, their voices already becoming animated, the adults settled in the small living room. "She's lovely," Rebecca said quietly to Maria. "Emma, she's absolutely lovely." "Thank you," Maria replied. "Charlotte seems wonderful too. Emma's been nervous about being too young, but I think they're going to be great friends." "Maria," Rebecca said, her voice gentler than Marcus had heard it in years. "Marcus told us about your diagnosis. I'm so sorry." Maria nodded, tears threatening. It's been hard to accept. But seeing Emma with Marcus, knowing she'll have him and now Charlotte, it makes it easier. From the bedroom came the sound of laughter, genuine, delighted laughter from both girls. Emma was showing Charlotte her art projects, while Charlotte was teaching Emma about her favorite books. "Daddy!" Emma called out. "Charlotte reads at a really high level. Can she read me a story?" "Of course," Marcus called back, exchanging amused looks with the other adults. "She's going to be okay," Rebecca said quietly to Marcus. "Emma, when the time comes, she's going to be okay, because she'll have us. All of us." The generosity of the statement surprised Marcus. Rebecca had every right to resent this complication to their carefully structured post-divorce life, but instead she was offering support. "Thank you," he said simply. "Emma," Charlotte's voice carried from the bedroom, "you have to meet my friend Sophia when we go back to California. She's going to love you." Maria and Marcus exchanged a look. Charlotte was already planning future visits, already incorporating Emma into her world. The bond between the sisters was forming faster than anyone had dared hope. "Mom!" Charlotte appeared in the doorway, her formal demeanor completely gone, replaced by typical 10-year-old excitement. "Can Emma come visit us in California? Our house has a pool. And there's this really good ice cream place and—" "Slow down," Rebecca laughed. "We'll figure out visits. But right now, why don't you show Emma the presents you brought her?" Charlotte had arrived with a suitcase full of gifts for Emma. Books, art supplies, clothes, and a beautiful diary with a lock and key. "This is for writing down your secrets," Charlotte explained seriously. "Every girl needs a diary for secrets." As Emma examined each gift with wonder, Charlotte suddenly looked at her father with an expression beyond her years. "Daddy, I understand now why you've been different. Emma needs you more than I do right now." The maturity of the statement floored Marcus. "Charlotte, you both need me." "I know," Charlotte said, "but she doesn't have another parent. When her mommy—" She trailed off, not wanting to say the words in front of Emma. "When that time comes," Marcus said carefully, "we'll all take care of each other. That's what families do." That evening, as both girls slept in Emma's bed, Charlotte having insisted on a sleepover, Marcus reflected on how completely his understanding of family had transformed. A month ago, he'd been a successful but emotionally disconnected man with limited contact with his only child. Now he was planning for a future where he'd be the primary parent to a grieving 7-year-old while maintaining a strengthened relationship with his 10-year-old daughter. It should have been overwhelming. Instead, for the first time in years, Marcus felt like he was exactly where he belonged. 2 weeks after Charlotte returned to California, Maria collapsed while making Emma's breakfast. The ambulance ride to the hospital was a blur of sirens and Emma's frightened tears as Marcus held her in the back of his car, following the paramedics. "Is Mama going to die?" Emma asked, her small voice barely audible over the chaos. Marcus had dreaded this question. But Maria's collapse had forced the conversation they'd been avoiding. "Sweetheart, your Mama is very, very sick. The doctors are going to do everything they can to help her." "But is she going to die?" Emma pressed, her 7-year-old intuition cutting through adult evasions. Marcus pulled Emma closer, his heart breaking. "Yes, baby. Your Mama is going to die. I'm so, so sorry." Emma's wail of anguish echoed through the car, a sound that would haunt Marcus for the rest of his life. She sobbed against his chest as he whispered promises that he would never leave her, that she would always be loved, that her mama would always be with her in her heart. At the hospital, Dr. Sarah Chen, Maria's oncologist, pulled Marcus aside while Emma sat with her unconscious mother. "The cancer has spread faster than we anticipated," Dr. Chen said gently. "We're looking at days, not weeks." Marcus felt the world tilt beneath his feet. Days. But she was doing better. The treatment was working. "Sometimes there's a rallying period before the final decline. I'm sorry, Mr. Wellington. We can make her comfortable, but there's nothing more we can do medically." Marcus stared through the glass at Emma, who was holding Maria's hand and talking to her in whispers, telling her about Charlotte's visit and the diary and all the plans they'd made. "There's something else," Dr. Chen continued. "Mrs. Rodriguez has been asking to speak with you privately. She's conscious but weak. I think she needs to tell you something important." Marcus entered the room quietly. Emma looked up with red-rimmed eyes. "Daddy, Mama won't wake up all the way. She only opens her eyes a little bit. Why don't you go get some juice from the vending machine with Nurse Patricia?" Marcus suggested gently. "I need to talk to Mama for a few minutes." Once Emma was gone, Maria's eyes fluttered open more fully. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Marcus, I'm here," he said, taking her hand. "I'm right here. There's something I never told you about the accident." Maria's breathing was labored, each word an effort. "Maria, you don't need to." "Yes, I do." Her grip on his hand tightened with surprising strength. "The accident, it wasn't an accident." Marcus felt ice form in his veins. "What do you mean?" "My stepfather. He found out about us, about the pregnancy. He was furious that I was involved with a Wellington. Said it would ruin the family's reputation if anyone found out his stepdaughter was pregnant by the town's golden boy." Marcus's mind reeled. Maria's stepfather, Robert Vance, had been a prominent city councilman, obsessed with social standing and political connections. "He arranged the accident," Maria continued, her voice growing weaker. "Tampered with the brakes on my father's car. He wanted to scare me, make me lose the baby. He never meant for everyone to die, just to end the pregnancy." "My God," Marcus breathed. "Maria, why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because he's still alive, Marcus. He's still powerful, and if anything happened to me, if the truth came out." She struggled to sit up slightly. "Promise me you'll protect Emma from him. Promise me you won't let him near her." The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. Robert Vance, who was now serving his fourth term as mayor, had murdered Maria's family and stolen 20 years from all of them. The man had attended Marcus's wedding, had shaken his hand at charity events, had smiled and made pleasant conversation while harboring a monstrous secret. "I promise," Marcus said fiercely. "I swear to you, Maria, I will protect her." "There's evidence," Maria whispered. "In my jewelry box. There's a safety deposit box key, bank documents, recordings. I've been gathering proof for years, waiting for the right time." "Evidence of what?" "Everything. The accident, the cover-up, the bribes he paid to keep people quiet. I was going to expose him when Emma turned 18, when she was old enough to handle the truth." Maria's eyes were closing again, exhaustion overtaking her. "But now it's up to you. When the time is right, when Emma is safe, make him pay for what he took from us." As Maria slipped back into unconsciousness, Marcus sat in stunned silence. The man responsible for destroying their lives was walking free, living in luxury, wielding power over the very city where Emma now lived. For the first time since discovering Emma on his building steps, Marcus felt something other than love and determination. He felt rage. Maria lingered for 5 more days, drifting in and out of consciousness, while Emma rarely left her bedside. Marcus had moved them to a private room and arranged for round-the-clock nursing care, but there was little left to do except wait and say goodbye. Charlotte and Rebecca had flown back immediately upon hearing the news, despite their complex history. Rebecca understood that Emma was about to lose her mother, and no child should face that alone. "Emma," Charlotte said softly, sitting beside her sister's chair, "would you like me to braid your hair the way Mama taught you?" Emma nodded wordlessly. Her tears had stopped flowing 2 days ago, replaced by a solemn acceptance that broke the adults' hearts. She seemed to understand that these were her final moments with the person who had been her entire world. "Mama," Emma whispered, holding Maria's hand, "I want you to know that I'll take really good care of Daddy, and I'll write in the diary Charlotte gave me every day, so I can tell you about everything that happens." Maria's eyes fluttered open slightly, focusing on Emma's face with tremendous effort. "My beautiful girl," she managed to whisper, You are the best thing I ever did. I love you, Mama. I love you so much. I love you too, baby. Always and always." Maria's gaze shifted to Marcus, who was standing at the foot of the bed with tears streaming down his face. "Take care of our daughter," she whispered. "Give her everything." "I will," Marcus promised. "I swear I will. Tell her about us when she's older. Tell her we were happy once." "I will." Maria's breathing became more labored as the day wore on. Dr. Chen had explained that the end would likely come quickly once her body began shutting down. Charlotte held Emma while Rebecca sat quietly in the corner, and Marcus maintained his vigil beside Maria's bed. As the sun began to set, casting golden light through the hospital room windows, Maria opened her eyes one last time. "Emma?" she called softly. Emma was immediately beside her, taking her mother's hand. "I'm here, Mama." "Remember what I always told you about the stars?" Emma nodded through her tears. "That each star is someone who loves us, watching over us from heaven. I'm going to be the brightest star you've ever seen. Every night, look up and find me. I'll be there. Promise? Promise." Maria's breathing slowed, became peaceful. Her eyes remained fixed on Emma's face, full of love and desperate memorization, as if trying to carry her daughter's image with her into whatever came next. "I see your daddy's eyes," Maria whispered with her final breath. "So beautiful. Both of you. So beautiful." The silence that followed was profound. Emma sat holding her mother's still hand, staring at her peaceful face, as if waiting for her to wake up. "She's gone," Emma said finally, her voice small and lost. "My mama's gone." Marcus gathered Emma into his arms, and this time when she cried, it was with the raw, devastating grief of a child who suddenly understood what forever meant. Charlotte cried too, for the sister she was only beginning to know, and for the mother Emma would have to live without. As the hospital staff quietly took care of necessary arrangements, Marcus held both his daughters and made a silent vow to Maria. He would give Emma everything: love, security, family, and when the time was right, justice for the man who had stolen their chance at happiness 20 years ago. But tonight, he would simply hold his daughters and help them navigate their first night in a world without Maria Rodriguez. The brightest star in Emma's sky had gone dark, but she wouldn't have to face the darkness alone. 6 months later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of Marcus's penthouse apartment, now transformed to accommodate his expanded family. Emma's artwork covered one entire wall of the living room, while Charlotte's academic awards and Emma's school projects shared space on the refrigerator. The sterile corporate atmosphere that had once defined Marcus's home had been replaced by the beautiful chaos of family life. Emma sat at the kitchen island, carefully writing in the diary Charlotte had given her, her tongue peeking out in concentration as she formed each letter. At 8 years old now, she had grown taller and stronger, but the shadows of grief still lingered in her dark eyes. "Dear Mama," she wrote in her careful script, "today is the day Daddy says we're going to make the bad man pay for what he did to you. I'm scared. But Daddy says being brave means doing what's right even when you're scared. Charlotte is here to help us be brave too." Marcus watched his daughter write, his heart both breaking and swelling with pride. The past 6 months had been the most challenging of his life, helping Emma navigate her grief while simultaneously investigating Maria's claims about Mayor Robert Vance. The evidence Maria had hidden away had proven to be a treasure trove of documentation spanning 20 years, phone recordings, bank statements showing suspicious transactions, and most damning of all, a deathbed confession from the mechanic who had been paid to tamper with the Rodriguez family car. Maria had been methodical in her pursuit of justice, even as cancer consumed her body. "Daddy," Emma said, looking up from her diary, "are you sure we have enough proof to make the judge believe us?" Marcus knelt beside his daughter, struck once again by her incredible maturity. She understood far more about their situation than most 8-year-olds could comprehend, but life had forced Emma to grow up faster than any child should. "We have more than enough proof, sweetheart. Your mama was very smart and very careful. She made sure we would be able to show everyone the truth." The doorbell rang, and Charlotte rushed to answer it. Rebecca entered, followed by a woman Marcus had come to respect deeply over the past months, District Attorney Sandra Mitchell, a no-nonsense prosecutor who had taken Maria's case personally when Marcus first brought her the evidence. "Are you ready for this?" Sandra asked Marcus quietly, while the girls played nearby. "Vance's lawyers are going to fight dirty. They'll try to discredit Maria's evidence, claim it was fabricated by a bitter woman seeking revenge." "Let them try," Marcus said firmly. "We have the mechanic's signed confession, bank records showing payments from Vance's personal accounts, and security footage from the garage where the tampering took place. Maria spent 20 years building an airtight case. What about Emma? Are you sure you want her to testify?" Marcus looked at his daughter, who was showing Charlotte something in her diary. "She wants to. She says her mama would want people to know the truth." Emma had insisted on testifying, despite the trauma it might cause. She wanted to tell the world about her mama's courage, about the 20 years they'd lost, about the family that had been stolen from them. Charlotte walked over to them, her expression serious beyond her 10 years. "Daddy, I've been thinking about what happens after today." What do you mean, sweetheart? After the bad man goes to jail, what happens to our family? Do Emma and I still get to be sisters even though her mama isn't here anymore?" Rebecca answered before Marcus could speak. "Charlotte, Emma is your sister forever. Nothing will ever change that. In fact, she looked at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. Your father and I have been talking, and we think it would be good for both you girls if Emma spent part of her summers in California with us. Charlotte's face lit up with pure joy. Really? Emma, did you hear that? You can come swimming in our pool and meet all my friends, and we can have sleepovers every night. Emma smiled, the first genuine smile Marcus had seen from her in weeks. I would like that very much. The courthouse. 3 hours later, they sat in the imposing courtroom where Robert Vance's fate would be decided. The mayor sat at the defendant's table, his silver hair perfectly styled, his expensive suit impeccable, but his face drawn with the stress of having his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. For 20 years, Vance had believed his secret was safe. Maria Rodriguez was supposed to have died in that car accident, taking her unborn child and any evidence of his involvement with her. He'd covered his tracks, paid off the few people who knew the truth, and built a political career on the foundation of murdered innocence. But Maria had survived, had remembered, and had spent 2 decades methodically building the case that would destroy him. Marcus held Emma's hand as she prepared to take the stand. She wore a simple blue dress that Charlotte had picked out for her, and her hair was braided the way Maria used to do it. Despite her youth, Emma carried herself with a dignity that impressed everyone in the courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Prosecutor Sandra Mitchell began her opening statement. This case is about a man who committed murder to protect his political ambitions, and about a brave woman who spent her dying years ensuring that justice would eventually prevail. Emma's testimony was heartbreaking in its simplicity. She spoke about her mama's strength, about the stories Maria had told her about the accident, about finding the hidden evidence after Maria's death. My mama said that bad people sometimes do terrible things, but good people never stop fighting for what's right, Emma said clearly, her small voice carrying across the silent courtroom. She said that telling the truth is always the right thing to do, even when it's scary. Vance's defense attorney tried to discredit an 8-year-old's testimony, but Emma's honesty and composure made his efforts appear cruel and desperate. The mechanical expert testified about the tampered brakes. The bank examiner explained the suspicious financial transactions. Former city employees came forward with stories of Vance's threats and bribes, their silence finally broken by Maria's courage. But the most damning evidence came from an unexpected source. Your Honor, Sandra Mitchell announced, the prosecution calls Robert Vance Jr. to the stand. A gasp went through the courtroom as Vance's own son, now a respected judge in a neighboring county, walked to the witness stand. The elder Vance's face went completely white. Bobby, he whispered, staring at his son in horror. Judge Robert Vance Jr. had lived with his father's secret for 20 years, had watched the man he'd once idolized build a career on the graves of innocent people. When Marcus had approached him with Maria's evidence, the younger Vance had finally found the courage to speak. My father came home the night of the Rodriguez accident, covered in grease and acting strangely, he testified. His voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. When news of the accident broke the next morning, he said something I've never forgotten. Sometimes you have to eliminate problems before they eliminate you. And did you understand what he meant by that? Not at the time, I was only 16, but as I got older, especially when I learned about Maria Rodriguez's pregnancy, the pieces started falling into place. The elder Vance stared at his son with a mixture of betrayal and devastation. Bobby, how could you? How could I? The younger Vance replied, his composure finally cracking. Dad, you killed an entire family. You robbed Marcus Wellington of 20 years with his daughter. You left a pregnant woman to believe she was alone in the world. How could I stay silent? The verdict. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood with a gravity that filled the courtroom. On the charge of first-degree murder in the deaths of Carlos Rodriguez, Isabella Rodriguez, and Michael Rodriguez, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of attempted murder in the case of Maria Rodriguez, we find the defendant guilty. On the charges of conspiracy, bribery, and obstruction of justice, we find the defendant guilty on all counts. Emma squeezed Marcus's hand as Vance was led away in handcuffs, his political career and freedom ended by the courage of a woman he'd tried to kill 20 years ago. "Is it over, Daddy?" Emma asked quietly. "It's over, sweetheart. Your mama got her justice." And 3 years later, Emma's 11th birthday party was held in the backyard of Marcus's new house, a warm, welcoming home in a family-friendly neighborhood, far different from the sterile penthouse where he'd once lived alone. Charlotte, now 13 and visiting for the summer, had spent weeks planning every detail of the celebration. "Emma, come make a wish," Charlotte called, standing beside an elaborate birthday cake decorated with stars, a tradition they'd started in honor of Maria's promise to watch over Emma from the heavens. Emma, now tall for her age with her hair grown long like her mama's had been, closed her eyes and made her wish. When she opened them, she was surrounded by friends from school, neighbors who'd become like family, and the two people who meant everything to her, her father and her sister. Marcus watched his daughters laughing together and felt the profound contentment that had eluded him for most of his adult life. Emma had not just survived her mother's death, she had thrived. She was an honor student, a talented artist, and most importantly, a happy child who remembered her mother with love rather than just grief. "What did you wish for?" Charlotte asked as Emma blew out her candles. "I can't tell you, or it won't come true," Emma said with a grin. "But I will say that I think Mama would be happy with how everything turned out." That evening, after the guests had gone home and Charlotte had fallen asleep, Marcus found Emma sitting on the porch swing, writing in a new diary. She'd filled 7 books since that first one Charlotte had given her. "Writing to Mama?" he asked, settling beside her. "Yes. I tell her about everything, school, friends, you and Charlotte, how we're doing." Emma looked up at the star-filled sky. "I still talk to her sometimes. Is that silly?" "Not at all. I think she's listening." "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Anything. Were you and Mama really happy once, before everything bad happened?" Marcus smiled, thinking of the young woman with dancing eyes who'd stolen his heart 2 decades ago. "We were very happy, Emma. Your mama was the most wonderful person I'd ever met. She was kind and smart and funny, and she had the most beautiful laugh." "I remember her laugh," Emma said softly. "Sometimes I dream about it." "She loved you more than anything in the world, sweetheart. Everything she did, especially gathering that evidence against Vance, she did to protect you and make sure you'd be safe." Emma nodded, then surprised Marcus with her next question. "Do you think you'll ever get married again?" Marcus had been dating Dr. Sarah Chen, Maria's former oncologist, for the past year. Sarah understood grief and healing in ways that had helped both Marcus and Emma process their loss. The relationship was progressing slowly, carefully, with Emma's emotional needs always the primary consideration. "Would that bother you if I did?" Marcus asked carefully. "I don't think so," Emma said thoughtfully. "Dr. Sarah is really nice, and she knew Mama. She says Mama would want us to be happy. She's right about that. Plus, Charlotte says every family needs a mum figure, and Dr. Sarah teaches me about science stuff that Mama didn't know." Marcus laughed at his daughter's practical approach to his romantic life. "Is that your official approval?" "That's my official approval," Emma confirmed with a grin. The wedding 6 months later, Marcus and Sarah were married in a small ceremony in the backyard of their home, surrounded by close friends and family. Emma served as Sarah's maid of honor, while Charlotte was Marcus's best woman, a role she took very seriously. During the ceremony, Emma read a poem she'd written about families being like constellations, different stars coming together to make something beautiful in the darkness. There wasn't a dry eye in the gathering. "Mama," Emma whispered, looking up at the afternoon sky, "I hope you like our new family. Dr. Sarah says she's not trying to replace you, just add to the love we already have." After the ceremony, as guests celebrated and the girls danced with their friends, Marcus found a quiet moment with his new wife. "Any regrets?" Sarah asked, adjusting his tie with the easy intimacy they'd developed. "Only one," Marcus said, pulling her close. "I regret that Maria couldn't be here to see this. She would have loved you." "She is here," Sarah said simply, "in Emma's smile, in Charlotte's protective instincts, in the man you've become. Maria's love is woven into every part of this family." 5 years later, Emma's sweet 16. Emma's 16th birthday fell on a Saturday, and the house was full of teenagers celebrating with music, laughter, and enough food to feed a small army. Charlotte, now a college sophomore studying journalism, had come home specifically for the party. Emma had grown into a beautiful young woman who combined Maria's warmth with Marcus's determination. She was student body president at her high school, captain of the art club, and had already been accepted to several prestigious colleges with full scholarships. But more than her achievements, Emma had developed into someone with deep empathy and unshakable integrity, qualities that would have made Maria incredibly proud. "Emma," Marcus said, pulling her aside during the party, "I have something special for you." "Ooh." He handed her an envelope that contained 2 items. The deed to a community center that had just been completed in Maria's name, and the keys to Maria's safety deposit box, which had contained not just evidence against Vance, but also letters Maria had written to Emma for each of her birthdays through age 18. "The community center?" Emma asked, tears in her eyes as she read the dedication plaque plans. "It's yours to run however you think your mother would want. The board of directors has already approved you for a position when you turn 18. And these letters. Your mama wrote them while she was sick, planning for birthdays she knew she wouldn't be here for. She made me promise to give them to you when you were old enough to understand them fully." Emma clutched the letters to her chest, overwhelmed by her mother's foresight and love. Even in death, Maria was still taking care of her daughter. "There's more," Marcus continued. "Robert Vance died in prison last week, natural causes. The man who took so much from our family is finally gone." Emma was quiet for a long moment, processing this news. "I don't feel happy about it," she said finally. "I feel peaceful, like a chapter is finally closed." "That's exactly how I feel. Daddy, can I ask you something that's been on my mind? Always. What would have happened if I hadn't gone to sell my toys that day? If I hadn't been brave enough to sit on those steps?" Marcus considered the question seriously. "I think we would have found each other eventually. Love that strong doesn't stay hidden forever, but I'm grateful we found each other when we did. Because every day with you has been a gift." The letters. That night, after the party guests had gone home, Emma sat in her room reading Maria's letters. Each one was dated for a specific birthday, filled with advice, encouragement, and the kind of maternal wisdom that transcends death. The letter for her 16th birthday contained a passage that brought Emma to tears. "My beautiful Emma, if you're reading this, it means you've grown into the amazing young woman I always knew you'd become. I hope you know how proud I am, not just of your accomplishments, but of your kindness, your strength, and your ability to love deeply despite experiencing loss. You have your father's intelligence and determination, but you have something else, a light inside you that can't be dimmed by darkness. Use that light to help others, to fight for justice like we fought for justice, and to never let fear stop you from doing what's right. I know you probably wonder sometimes if I would approve of the choices you're making, the family you've built, the life you're living. Let me tell you with absolute certainty, I approve of everything that makes you happy and helps you grow into the person you're meant to be. Your father is a good man who loves you completely. Sarah is a wonderful woman who will guide you through the things I can't. Charlotte is the sister I always wanted you to have. Together, you're a family that would make any mother's heart sing with joy. Remember what I told you about the stars, my darling. I'm still the brightest one in your sky, and I always will be. East to college and beyond. Emma chose to attend Northwestern University, studying social work and non-profit management. Her goal was to run the Maria Rodriguez Community Center and eventually expand it into a network of support services for single mothers and their children. During her sophomore year, she started a scholarship fund for children who had lost parents to violence or injustice. The fund was supported by Wellington Industries and had already helped dozens of kids attend college. Charlotte, now a successful investigative journalist, often wrote about social justice issues, carrying forward the mission for truth that had defined their family's journey. Marcus, at 62, had scaled back his involvement in day-to-day business operations to focus on philanthropy and spending time with his family. He and Sarah had been talking about adoption, wanting to give another child the kind of love and opportunity that had transformed Emma's life. The full circle moment. On the 10th anniversary of Maria's death, the entire family gathered at her gravesite. Emma, now 21 and about to graduate college, had organized a memorial service that honored not just Maria's memory, but all the families affected by violence and injustice. 10 years ago, Emma spoke to the gathered crowd, my mother died believing that love and truth would eventually triumph over evil. Today, I'm here to tell you that she was right. She spoke about the community center, about the families they'd helped, about the scholarship recipients who were now doctors, teachers, and social workers themselves. My mother taught me that we're all connected, that when we help one person, we help everyone, that when we fight for justice for one family, we fight for justice for all families. Marcus watched his daughter speak with the same passion and conviction that had once driven Maria, and he felt the profound satisfaction of knowing that their love story, interrupted by tragedy, complicated by secrets, and ultimately redeemed by truth, had created something beautiful and lasting. After the service, as they walked back to their cars, Emma slipped her hand into Marcus's. Daddy, do you ever wonder what Mama would think of who we've become? Marcus looked at his extraordinary daughter, confident, compassionate, and completely unbroken despite everything she'd endured, and smiled. I think she'd say we turned out exactly the way she hoped we would. That night, Emma made one final entry in her childhood diary. Dear Mama, today I realized that you never really left us. You're in every choice I make, every person I help, every time I choose love over fear. You're in Daddy's kindness, in Charlotte's courage, in Sarah's wisdom, and in the family we built from the pieces of our broken hearts. I'm not sad anymore when I think about you. I'm grateful. Grateful for the time we had, grateful for the love you gave me, and grateful for the strength you taught me. You kept your promise about being the brightest star in my sky. But now I understand that the real light comes from carrying your love forward and sharing it with everyone I meet. I love you always and always. Your grateful daughter, Emma. Epilogue. 20 years later, Emma Wellington Chen, she'd taken both her father's and stepmother's names when she married Sarah's nephew David, stood in the original Maria Rodriguez Community Center, now expanded into a campus of buildings serving hundreds of families each year. At 31, she was the executive director of a national non-profit organization, a published author, and the mother of 3-year-old twins. Marcus, named for his grandfather, and Maria, named for the grandmother who continued to inspire their family. Marcus, now in his 70s, but still vibrant, spent his days reading to children at the center and teaching them that love could overcome any obstacle. Charlotte, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, lived nearby with her own family and visited weekly, maintaining the sisterly bond that had sustained them through every challenge. Sarah continued her medical practice, specializing in oncology and grief counseling, helping other families navigate the kind of loss the Wellingtons had experienced. The small apartment where Emma had once lived with Maria had been converted into a memorial garden, where families could come to remember their own lost loved ones and find hope in the beauty that could grow from the soil of sorrow. On the wall of Emma's office hung a photo from that first day when she'd sat on the steps of Wellington Industries with her bag of toys, desperate to save her mother. Next to it was a photo from her wedding day, surrounded by all the people who had become her family. And above both photos, mounted in a place of honor, was the last letter Maria had written, addressed not to Emma, but to Marcus. My dearest Marcus, if you're reading this, it means our daughter has grown up and our story has come full circle. Thank you for loving her the way I knew you would. Thank you for giving her the family she deserved. Thank you for proving that love really can conquer all. Watch the stars with her sometimes, and remember that the three of us, you, me, and Emma, were always meant to be a family. It just took us a little longer to find our way to each other than most people do. All my love forever and always. Maria. As Emma tucked her own children into bed that night, little Maria asked her favorite question. Mama, tell us again about great-grandmama Maria and how she watched over everyone from the stars. And Emma smiled, looking out the window at the vast sky above, and began the story that had become their family's most treasured legacy, a story of love that transcended death, justice that never gave up, and the beautiful truth that sometimes the darkest moments lead us to the brightest light. The end.